Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. Well, hello there, everybody. How do you feel today? Are you ready for another week of English? I bet you are. So let's get stuck in. Now, who remembers what we learned last week? I know, you all remember. I'm kidding. I know that you all remember. Okay, so let's just check once more before we dive in to this week's first lesson. Okay, last week we talked about the idea of obligation, the idea of necessity, the idea of when something is required, when there is necessity, when we need to do something. Okay, good. Now, when we talk about the idea of obligation, we always meet the words have to and must. These words tell us that there is a strong obligation involved. Now, using have to and must is simple enough, as we saw last week. When we use have to, we have to change the verb to the right form for the different subjects. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. This isn't anything new. We all remember that we have to be careful with the third person singular, for example. So, when we use have to, we conjugate the verb as normal. To conjugate a verb means to give the different forms of a verb. If someone asks us to conjugate the verb to have, we can conjugate like this. I have, you have, he has, she has, it has, we have, you have, they have. Easy, simple, and we can do it standing on our heads. Okay, back to obligation. So, when we use have to show strong obligation, we conjugate the verb to fit the subject. We say, I have to do something, but we change the verb when we're talking about the third person singular. We conjugate the verb correctly, and we say that he has to do something, or she has to do something, or it has to do something. Simple, isn't it? Yep-a-doodle-doo. Okay, now when we use must to show strong obligation, the form is even easier. We don't have to conjugate anything. We use must for all the subjects. I must, you must, he must, she must, it must, we must, you must, and they must. See? Very easy. We don't have to worry about conjugation at all. One other difference between the two is that we follow must with the infinitive without to. We don't say, I must to do my homework. We say, I must do my homework. So, that's one area where we have to be a little bit careful. We have to remember that when we use must, we follow it with the infinitive without to. Okay, what else did we learn about strong obligation? Yes, that's right. We have to be careful when we use must, because must can be aggressive. And even if we don't want to be aggressive, we can offend people if we use must. It's very easy. Must is a very dangerous word to use. When people hear someone say, you must, it automatically becomes a challenge. And people feel as though you are telling them what to do, which can be very aggressive. So, I think our golden rule should be use must when you're talking about yourself. That's it. It's a simple rule to make sure that we don't start any trouble. Okay. If you're an army sergeant and your job is to make soldiers run and run and run and run and run for millions of kilometers every day, and then do billions of press-ups, and then do everything you say when you say it, then fine. In your case, using must is not a problem. So, if this is you, then okay, it's your job to be aggressive and shout at people to make them do what you want them to do. So yes, please, be my guest, use must. But for everyone else, for all of us more normal people, I think that we need to remember the golden rule. Use must when we're talking about ourselves, but not when we're talking about other people. It's too dangerous. Okay, so when we want to talk about other people's obligations, we use have to. Simple. Have to and must are at the same level of obligation, so they have the same strength, the same power. Okay, we have to conjugate have to, but that's not difficult, is it? No, we can conjugate verbs, no problem. And with have to, we only have to be careful with one thing, the third person singular. All the other forms of the verb are the same. Now, the only strange one is it. It's difficult to think of something that it has to do. Maybe if we're talking about a computer program, this new program has to calculate all the answers quickly. Okay, that's a good enough sentence. Okay, so on we go. Now, do you remember Loretta? Of course you remember Loretta. Loretta, Dave's girlfriend. The young woman with long red hair and a funny surname. Loretta Sweat. That's a very strange name, isn't it? Anyway, when we first met Loretta, she was going to a job interview at the Fabuloso Splendido Hotel, wasn't she? Yes. That's where we also saw that Gordon Taylor, Mary's brother, works. Gordon Taylor is the receptionist at the Fabuloso Splendido Hotel, and Loretta went to the hotel for a job interview. Loretta met the hotel manager, Sydney Williams, and about a week later, she got a letter from Mr. Williams saying that she was the best person for the job. Loretta got the job. Soon, Loretta will start her new job as the head of security at the hotel. Okay, now I think it's time we caught up with Loretta. We need to see what's happening with Miss Sweat. Now, we all know that Loretta wanted a job at the hotel, and we know that she has a black belt in more than one martial art. And we also know that she's an expert in security and alarm systems. Good. We remember all this. We also know that in Mr. Williams' opinion, Loretta is the best person for the job. Now, I think it's time to have another look at comparative and superlative adjectives. Don't you? Okay, so what do we remember? Do we all remember the basic method for making a comparative adjective from an adjective? I'm sure we do, but let's run over the rules one more time. Okay, so before we dive in, who remembers what a syllable is? Do you remember? That's correct. A syllable is a sound in a word. My name, Gavin, has got two syllables, ga and vin. Bodro kerestur has got how many? Bodro kerestur, 5. Bodrog Keresztúr has got 5 syllables. What about Las Vegas, where I got married? Las Vegas. So Las Vegas has got 3 syllables. Okay, simple. Now, why are syllables relevant? Do you remember? Correct, a doodle-doo. We use syllables to tell us how to change an adjective into a comparative adjective, don't we? So, if the adjective has got 1 syllable, we add er to make the comparative adjective. If the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, we double the last letter before adding er. If the adjective ends in y, then we replace the y with ier. Okay, great. So now we know how to make comparative forms for different adjectives. Short adjectives. Those adjectives with 1 syllable are easy. We just add er. If the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, we double the last letter and then add er. If the adjective ends in y, then we replace the y with ier to make the comparative form. Good. Now, what about longer adjectives? Well, if the adjective has 2 or 3 or 4 syllables, then we don't change the adjective, we put more in front of it. So, if we have a long adjective like careful, for example, the comparative form is not carefuller, but more careful. If we look at the adjective expensive, the comparative form is not expensiver, but more expensive. If we look at the adjective interesting, then the comparative form is not interestinger, but more interesting. Now, before we start practicing comparative adjectives, there's a couple which are irregular. Ha! Irregular words in English? Surely not. Yes, but you know that we don't have to panic. We are, well, what are we? Come on, let me hear you say it. We are what? That's right. We are gods of English. Say it again. What are we? We're gods of English. Shout it, scream it, frighten the dog and scare the cat as we tell the world. We are gods of English. Okay, back to earth. So, let's have a look at the irregular adjectives. Oh no, we haven't got time to look at the irregular adjectives. That'll have to wait until our next lesson, because we're out of time. Yes, that's all we have time for today. I'll see you all tomorrow and we'll pick up where we left off. Okay. Right, thanks for watching, and remember to check out all the video lessons and everything else connected to the show at www.m5tv.hu. I'm still Gav Duncan, and I'll see you next time. See you later. Bye.